Hey everybody, it's Dak here from the Ed Boys, and welcome to our RuneScape 2007 1-99 farming guide. In this guide, I'm hoping to give you all of the information that you need to get to 99 farming. Keep in mind, there are a lot of crops and methods that you can use to get farming XP. These are just the ones that I prefer to use. Let's first talk about the basics of farming. I'm going to use allotment patches as my example here. Allotment patches are where you can grow fruits and vegetables. These patches are pretty good for XP since there are 5 of them in the game, and the longest plants take just over an hour to grow. To plant the seed in the patch, you first need to rake the patch. Raking weeds is actually a good way to grab your very first couple farming levels, but I'll mention some other ways later. If you don't want to have to rake your patches, you can remove weeds permanently through the Tithe Farm, which I will also talk about later in the guide. Once you've cleared your patch, you can either plant the seeds or use some compost on it first. Compost and super compost can be used on the patch to reduce the chance of your plants becoming diseased, and also increase the amount of harvest you'll get from it once your plants grow. You're going to need 3 seeds to plant in the allotment patches, and you'll also need a seed dibber to actually plant those seeds. Allotment seeds do require watering to grow. If you did not pay a local farmer to protect them for you, you're going to want to water your plants every 1 or 2 growth stages, but seriously, I would just pay the farmer to protect your plants so that you don't have to come back until they're fully grown. To see what the farmer needs to protect your plant, you can always just use your farming skill guide. Once your harvest is ready to be harvested, you do need a spade to do it. Also, if you ever need to note some items, some of your plants in particular, because you have no inventory space left, you could always use some of your plants, like herbs and watermelons and whatnot, on the leprechaun, and he will note them for you. Before we move on to which patches and crops you should use to level up, let's talk about diseased crops. Every growth stage on your crops, they can become diseased, and if they aren't cured before the next growth cycle, they will die. The easiest way to cure a plant is just to use a plant cure on it, so generally I tend to carry one on me in my farming runs, but there's also a spell in the Lunar Spellbook that can help you out. If you're too late and the plant is already dead when you get there, you can use Resurrect Crops, which is a level 78 spell in the Arceus Spellbook. Otherwise, you have lost the seed and you're going to need to replant. While we're on the topic of spells, there's also a lunar spell called Geomancy that allows you to check the current status of all your plants. It's a great way to check if they've died or if they've finished growing, or even to make sure that you're protecting all of your plants with the local farmer. Some helpful gear for farming is the farmer's outfit, which can be obtained from the Tithe Farm. Wearing a full set of farmer's gear gives you 2.5% XP boost while farming. This 2.5% doesn't make a huge difference on the way to 99 farming, but it can help, and if you plan on doing the Tithe Farm at all, then you might as well just grab the gear. There are a lot of different patches and a lot of different ways to travel to them. I've left a link in the description of the wiki's list of patches and methods of travel for each of them. I'll be showing footage of me and what I use to travel, but this list is going to give you a lot more options than I will. And I'll go ahead and throw some other useful links from the wiki that I think you guys might want to look at. It's just, there's a lot of different information about farming. There's a whole ton of plants and a whole ton of like protecting things and times with how they grow and blah 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 blah. So just a couple of links for specific information from the wiki that would make this video too long to put it all in there. Go ahead and check them out if you need it. For your first levels, as I mentioned earlier, you can just rake some weeds so you don't have to wait an hour just to get a little bit of farming XP. But there's also a handful of quests you can do to get a little bit of farming XP. In fact, I believe that you can get in the 40s only doing quests. I suggest at least doing Fairy Tale Part 1, as it's going to give you above 15, which I would consider a good starting point for actually planting things. Plus, you're going to get the magic secateurs. I really don't know how to say them, so I just kind of wing it with that word. But you'll get these magic things, which are going to help a lot with herb farming. If you don't want to do any quests, the Sorcerer's Garden can grab you those first levels really quickly. The Sorcerer's Garden is a minigame that you can unlock by talking to Osman, who is right outside the Al-Kharid Palace. Then you can talk to this witch apprentice and be teleported to the garden where you try to steal some fruit. I would just take from the winter area, since it's the easiest one to get through, and it's really only going to take a couple of loads of these skirks. It's actually a super simple way to get your farming level up until you get to a decent level and you need a lot more experience. I'd suggest getting to, again, level 15 so that you can start regular tree runs, but a minimum of 9 farming is what I would require at this point to just start your herb runs. Now let's get into the meat of the guide, the farming runs. A farming run is really simple. Once your plants are done growing every hour or so, depending on the plants, maybe 8+ hours if they're trees, you can just take your seeds and your farming tools out to each plant, harvest them, and replant. It's really that simple. Even though you usually have to wait like an hour to get XP, a farming run usually takes like 5 minutes. You can't really use farming runs to just grind out your 99 farming though, since you have to wait between so many runs. So if you are somebody who really wants to just sit down and crank out the 99, the Tithe Farm is where you want to go. But again, I will talk about the Tithe Farm later in the guide. Trees and fruit trees give the most XP per harvest, which for trees is actually just checking health, not harvesting. That's why the bulk of your XP I would suggest doing tree runs. There are 5 regular tree patches and 5 fruit tree patches in the game. While I discuss trees for a second, I will be doing a tree run on screen for your visual. Regular trees take 8 hours to grow, while fruit trees take 16 hours. This can be a little bit longer. Sometimes your tree growth gets messed up from logging out, but there's really not a lot you can do about it. So just be sure to use your geomancy spell if you have it. Great way to check if your trees are done. Logically, every 8 hours you can do a tree run, and then just every other tree run you can do fruit trees too. When it comes to protecting your trees, it can clearly double the price of farming, just because of how many supplies you have to buy to protect them. But at the same time, you can guarantee that each of your trees is alive at the end of the run. So overall, it'll take you less runs and less time. So it depends on how much money you want to spend. There is only a 1 in 8 chance of your tree dying. So you end up spending a lot of money just to take away a little bit of time. But again, really depends on how you're feeling. Again, if you go to your skills tab and click on farming, it's going to show you what you need to pay the farmer to protect your plants. Adding in other farming runs, like herbs and allotments every 80 minutes, will increase your farming XP per day, but it requires more runs. So if you just want to do tree runs, you really only have to do 2 or 3 runs a day, and you're going to get your farming in a couple of months, which is still kind of slow, but it does not take very much effort. Herb runs are not only a good way to add some XP, but it's also a great way to make some money. I do have a full guide that we'll discuss in a lot more depth on how to make money growing herbs, but I will link that guide in the description. Herbs are a little bit simpler to grow than allotment seeds. You do not need to water them, and you can't pay a farmer to protect them, so it's highly suggested to use super compost before you plant your seeds. Herbs take 80 minutes to grow, and to harvest them, you do need a spade and some secateurs, which again, you probably want the magic ones from Fairy Tale Part 1 because they do increase how many herbs you can get from the patch. For the same reason that tree runs are the best XP per hour while farming, herbs turn out to be a great moneymaker. A lot can depend on price, but with Ronars, I tend to make over $1 million an hour while I'm farming them. Even though you can only do like 15 minutes of them every hour, it's a pretty nice way to pay for some of your seeds if you are doing tree runs, because tree seeds can be very expensive. If you'd rather be able to just grind out farming instead of continuously waiting for your plants to grow, then the Tithe Farm is the place for you. You can get up to 100k XP per hour here. I think even 110k is possible. You're probably going to average more around 100k. And it is going to cost you a lot less money. In fact, you'll likely profit a lot while you're here too. Overall, the Tithe Farm takes more hours of farming, but you can grind out your farming cape in much less calendar time. You do need 100% favor in the Hosidius house to use the Tithe Farm, and at least 34 farming to start. A full guide on the Tithe Farm could give you more information than this guide is going to give you, but the idea of the minigame is pretty simple. I'd make sure to bring some watering cans with you if it's your first time. I'd take at least 6. And there are 3 different levels of seeds, so until you get level 74 in farming, you're not going to get the max XP per hour here, but 74 to 99 is a much larger chunk of farming, so for the most part, you'll be getting that 100k per hour. And again, the lowest level seed does require 34 farming. The growth cycle in the Tithe Farm is very quick compared to regular patches, and they do need to be watered on every cycle, so you gotta run quickly. I find that running and watering in this rotation of 16 plants works beautifully for me. When you turn in your fruits, you want to turn in all 100 that you grew, unless you let some die, of course, because you get a little bit of bonus points for that. And you are trying to get some points out of this. That's how you can profit. Generally, I believe that buying the grape seeds and selling them is the best way to profit. But you can unlock things like the farmer's outfit and a watering can that can hold up to 1,000 charges and also is recharged with points. I believe that's everything you need to know about getting your 99 to farming, everybody. This was a little bit different than my other 1 to 99 guides, because with farming, it's still pretty easy, I guess, to say once you hit a certain level, start to plant these plants. There's just so many plants that you can do, so I really do think it's mostly up to your discretion. So, of course, there are a lot of times in this guide where I said to look in the description. There are a handful of links in there. There's just a lot of information with farming. That's why there's so many different ways you can do it. If there's any information that you think I may have missed, go ahead and leave that in the comments section. I will also put that in the description for after the video is uploaded. And I believe that is it, everybody. So thank you very much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed. If you have any more questions, you can leave those in the comments section too. And I will see you next time.